But actually, Prabhupada is still present in the society. He's present in the form of his books. He's present in the form of his deity in the temple. It's not different from Srila Prabhupada. He's present in the form of his devotees who are sincerely following his instructions. They're also manifestations of Prabhupada's mercy. As Ashwatthama was throwing a Brahmastra weapon at Arjuna, and the whole universe was going to be destroyed. That was my introduction to Krishna conscious philosophy.
As we see, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas in a very young age. And at the time of Srila Prabhupada also, the sannyasis are very young. But nowadays we see as sannyasis almost around 50 plus.
Sannyas is not a problem. The real problem is guruship in our society. See, when I became a sannyasi, I had nothing. I had no money, I had nothing. But then when you become a guru, and then you get so many followers, so much financial assistance, etc., which for a sannyasi is not necessarily so good. Prabhupada came to Buffalo, and during that time I asked Srila Prabhupada who the deities were. So he told me he was Krishna. I was happy to know he was worshiping Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava.
So according to our level, how much we're constantly engaged, consistently engaged, how much we're approaching the stage of nishta, fixity, with enthusiasm, to that extent Krishna gives us intelligence how to make further progress in devotional service.
Do you have any message for the next generation and for the future leaders?
Read Prabhupada's books, hear from Prabhupada's disciples and followers, but try to see through the eyes of the scripture with Prabhupada's books what they're saying. Don't think that any of us can be independent of Prabhupada and be effective. It's the most difficult service, being a diksha guru in ISKCON. Even you want to do the right thing, but our culture is such that it's very difficult to do the right thing sometimes as a diksha guru. There's so much expectations from the disciples. He has his nest, he has his wife, he has his children. He's not worried about anything, about financially. So why should you worry? So he said, yes, Prabhupada.
And what basic qualities we look for as a sannyasi? Hare Krishna. So today is our very great fortune to have a very wonderful and very insightful association of His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj. Prahaladananda Swami Maharaj is a very senior disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj has joined ISKCON in 1968 in New York. Maharaj is well known for his extensive book distribution services, and simultaneously he is taking care of the Sannyas ministry of ISKCON. He is a member of GBC, so we are very fortunate to have his association. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, first of all, we would like to ask you about your journey, how you came into Krishna consciousness.
In 1968, well, the first time I found out about Krishna consciousness was in 1966, or 65. I read an article in the East Village Other about Srila Prabhupada, with Prabhupada being on the cover. And then in 1968, in the beginning of 68, one of my friends taught me the Hare Krishna mantra. And when I went home, I was a student at the University of Buffalo. And when I went home that year to visit my parents who were living in Brooklyn, I visited my friends who were living at 26 2nd Avenue. And they told me about their experience living at 26 2nd Avenue, how they wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock and they'd start to dance. So I thought they were moon worshippers at that time. And then in 1968, in the middle of it, May 68, I was walking to the nicest place in Buffalo. I think people who live in India, where they hear that you went to the University of Buffalo, they laugh. They think it's quite strange that there's a university called Buffalo.
Yeah.
In any case, it was the largest university on the East Coast of America. And Buffalo is not noted for its scenic beauty. It was in the nicest place in Buffalo was a cemetery, because in the cemetery they actually had a park and they had some flowers and trees. So I was walking there, and suddenly my whole existence changed. Now, at that time, it was the beginning of the drug revolution at the universities, but I had not taken any drugs. I hadn't even smoking cigarettes or anything like that at the time. But suddenly everything changed, and the buildings that I was walking by became like they were from a fairy tale. They were all pastel, and I realized I was in a different world. So I walked to the cemetery, and I saw in the cemetery there was a bridge, and there were so many rocks and so many things there, and I realized that everything was unlimited, and therefore there must be some higher purpose in life than just going to a university, and that the aim of life was to find out what that higher purpose was. So that week, that was the beginning of May 1968, I became a vegetarian. I started to study the Bible and other books from the East. I started to do astrology and yoga. And then although I was going to the university, I got a job as a yoga model at an art studio. So that was in May 1968. And then I met one of my friends a little bit while after that. His name was Jeffrey Hickey, who later on became one of our initiating gurus in ISKCON and a sannyasi also for some time. He became known as Jagadish Maharaj for some time.
Yeah.
And he told me, I was asking him if he knew any Buddhist temple or some kind of temple I could go to. So he mentioned that there was a little center that they established a couple of blocks away from the university on LaSalle Avenue. I believe it was 16 or 19 LaSalle Avenue. So I went down there. I rode my bike down there, and I was going past there, and Burjan came out and said, "Are you looking for the temple here?" You know Burjan?
Yeah.
So I stopped by the temple, and I started to attend some of the classes at the university, because Rupa Nugaprabhu was giving classes. And although I was doing Hatha Yoga, I was convinced I should also add the chanting to it. So I was chanting 25 rounds a day, coming to the programs. Burjan Prabhu would give class usually 2 or 3 times a week, and Rupa Nuga would give class to at the university. And then they had the meetings in LaSalle Avenue. Unfortunately, we didn't have any Bhagavad-gitas. The only thing we had was one line from Dr. Radha Krishna's book called the Bhagavad-gita, and we didn't have the Sanskrit or the purport. The only thing that Burjan gave class on was the translation, as the embodied soul continually passes in a body from boyhood to youth to old age, so similarly the soul will pass to another body at the time of death. The self-realized souls are not bewildered by such changes. So that's what I heard from May or June until, well, we didn't have a blue Bhagavad-gita until the blue one until sometime in 1969. So that was the philosophy from Bhagavad-gita we heard. I thought maybe there's a little bit more to the Bhagavad-gita than that, but that's what we heard. And then we had Srila Prabhupada's originally 3 Bhagavatams, which we read in the morning. The first Bhagavatam class I heard when I came, probably in June, was Ashwatthama was throwing a Brahmastra weapon at Arjuna, and the whole universe was going to be destroyed. That was my introduction to Krishna conscious philosophy.
Yeah.
In any case, I stayed with the chanting, and at one point, I realized that as long as I was chanting, I was out of Maya, and as soon as I stopped chanting, that I was going to be in the illusory energy. So I decided the best thing to do is to move into the temple so I could keep on chanting. And as soon as I moved into the temple, they gave me 2 services, because Burjan Prabhu had left to go open a center in Chapel Hill with another devotee named Toshan Krishna Prabhu. And so they made me the head pujari and the treasurer. As soon as there was Lord Jagannath, Lord Baladev, and Srimati Subhadra Devi. And when I first came, they were on a bookshelf. It was a very small center. It was formerly a railroad shack. So it only had, on the bottom floor was what was the temple room, but the temple room actually was caved in for some reason. And then they had the altar. It wasn't an altar. First there was a bookshelf where Lord Jagannath was on. So although Burjan Prut has a different story, but as I remember, I asked him, because he was the pujari, I said, who are these deities? Because I had no idea. And he said he didn't know either. In any case, I became the pujari when Burjan Prut left to go open a center in Chapel Hill. And I became the treasurer. So in 1969, I believe around April, Srila Prabhupada came to Buffalo for a week. And during that time, I asked Srila Prabhupada who the deities were, who Lord Jagannath was. I knew his name. So he told me he was Krishna. So I was happy to know he was worshiping Krishna.
Yeah.
And then he mentioned to me that I spent some time with Prabhupada during that week.
Oh.
And all the time, one thing I noticed, that Prabhupada always seemed like he was meditating and talking to someone internally.
Yeah.
So then when I asked him that question, I saw he was talking to someone internally. And then he was just about to say, but he was telling me that every year they have this big Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri, and then he was about to say, but you don't have to worry about that, but then he stopped. And then he didn't say anything. It just so happens that year we actually had a Rath Yatra in Buffalo.
No.
So I always noticed that Prabhupada whoever he was talking to knew a lot more than I did. In any case, so that was my introduction. Krishna gave me many realizations for a couple of years, or maybe a little bit more than that, in Krishna consciousness. So I was able to experience things which I can't even experience now in Krishna consciousness. In any case, my relation with the deities was more than just formal. They became my friends.
Yeah.
So I understood that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not just in theory, but by experience. Although I remember one time I was with Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles, sitting in the garden with Karunda, because every year I was a temple president at that time in Texas. And every year we'd go and visit. We'd go to the Rath Yatra. We'd travel there by car, which was probably around 2,000 kilometers, maybe 2,500 kilometers. We drive to LA first, and then we drive up, which is around 1,200 kilometers, to San Francisco. And so when I was in Los Angeles, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would be there, and I'd have an opportunity to associate with him in his garden, or sometimes to go on a morning walk or something like that. So when I was there one time with Srila Prabhupada, he asked me where I came from. I said I came from Dallas, that I was the temple president, because I had taken over from a devotee named Mohanananda Prabhu. And immediately Prabhupada asked me, he said, well, how's your farm going? And I didn't know anything about a farm.
Oh.
So apparently that devotee had written to Prabhupada about a farm. So I said, I don't know anything about a farm. Anyhow, Prabhupada he stopped and he looked at me and he said, so, are you convinced that Krishna is God, the Supreme Personality? Are you convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So I said, yes. And then Prabhupada kept on talking. He looked at the tree and he said, do you see Krishna, the bird in the tree? He said, do you see the bird? So I didn't see any bird, but I didn't want to argue with Prabhupada, so I said, yes. So Prabhupada said, well, he has his nest, he has his wife, he has his children. He's not worried about anything, about financially. So why should you worry? So I said, yes, Prabhupada. And then he stopped again. He said, so are you convinced about Krishna? So I said, yes. So Prabhupada did that with me 3 times that particular time. And then Karanga Prabhu mentioned to Srila Prabhupada, he said that one representatives of one boy, Guru Maharaj, he came and he asked that we go out to the airport to greet God when he came to the airport. So Prabhupada said, well, you should go there and you should kick him in the face with your boots on, shoes on. Of course, Prabhupada didn't mean that literally, but anyhow. And Prabhupada talked about different things like Indian management and things like that, and how in the future we'd have to send devotees to India to help open the centers there, to maintain the centers. Anyhow, so my experience in Krishna consciousness originally was on a platform that I still haven't achieved yet, to a certain extent. So that experience was enough to keep me fixed in Krishna consciousness and trying to come back to that same platform that I experienced originally.
Wonderful, Maharaj. It was very wonderful that how you met Srila Prabhupada and how you had a conversation with him. Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I saw Srila Prabhupada, because I was initiated, most of us got initiated by mail. Prabhupada was in Montreal in 1968. And Burjan Prabhu and Jagadish Prabhu hitchhiked there and got initiated by Prabhupada when he was in Montreal in 1968. But I didn't really want to hitchhike. So I waited. And at that time, we'd send our beads and to Srila Prabhupada for initiation. So I sent beads, and Prabhupada received the beads. And he said to Aravinda, who was his secretary at that time, he said, this boy has sent me his beads, but there's no recommendation for his initiation. So Aravinda said, well, Prabhupada, I just talked to him on the telephone, and he seemed like a nice boy. So Prabhupada said, so you're recommending him? So he said, well, I thought it was a nice boy, but... And then Prabhupada said, well, then I'll give him initiation if you recommend him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So then Prabhupada sent me the beads back, they sent me the beads back. And I was reading Back to Godhead at that time, which was our other source of knowledge. And the story was Prahlad Maharaj. And right when I got the beads, when they came in the mail, I was reading the article, and it said Prahlad. I said, well, Prahlad would be a nice name. That's nice. So then when I got open the letter, it said that your name is Prahaladananda.
Oh, wow.
One was as cheerful as Prahlad Maharaj in all kinds of critical tests.
Yeah.
So when I saw Prabhupada the first time, that was in February of 1969. Prabhupada came in April. So I was always thinking that when I see Srila Prabhupada, I should remember to bow down, because I came from Brooklyn, New York, where you were taught not to bow down before anyone. But in our temple in Buffalo, it was a very small little shack, and the deities were there on an altar. Burjan Prabhu had made the altar. And every time you came to the temple, into the temple room, which is all the time, you walked into the door of the temple room was there, you had to go, and then there was the stairs up to where we were staying. And then there was a kitchen. So every time you came into the building, you'd have to pay obeisances. Every time you came downstairs, you had to pay obeisances. Every time you had to go into the kitchen, you had to pay obeisances, or come out of the kitchen. So we were constantly paying obeisances. And the idea is that you always had to offer a little bit of rice to Krishna every time you saw him. So we were doing that all day long. So I was getting used to paying obeisances. So
Yes.
I was thinking that when I see Srila Prabhupada, I should remember to pay obeisances. So Prabhupada came to the airport, and when I looked at him, he looked like he was floating. And I was so struck with wonder, I forgot to pay obeisances. So Prabhupada floated by me, and then I paid obeisances. The next thing I knew, that Brahmananda had tapped me on the back and said, you have to stay here to get Prabhupada's luggage. So I said, no way. I haven't seen Srila Prabhupada. And Brahmananda said, you're going to stay here and get the luggage. So he was very convincing. He was a big guy. So, so I stayed there, and I got his luggage and brought it upstairs. And that week I stayed with Srila Prabhupada. Whenever I went to because my university classes are usually in the afternoon. So in the morning I'd stay with Srila Prabhupada and sit there while he was either talking to me or someone else might be there. And so I got his association. If we didn't go out, sometimes Prabhupada went on engagements to he gave some classes at the University of Buffalo where I went to, and also to other places. Went to a church, a monastery actually he went to. It's Thomas Aquinas? What is his Thomas Aquinas? No, it was St. Franciscan monastery. He gave class there. He gave class at the university because Rupa Nuga Prabhu had a class, accredited class at the university at that time. And also he gave a class at the conference hall at the university there. And then before I went to class, I usually just sit there and hear Prabhupada talk to others, or he'd talk to me, give me some instructions. So that was my introduction to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was very enlightening also. How you met your guru and how much association you got. Very frequently you got Prabhupada's association. Yeah,
when I was there, I remember one time I was sitting with Srila Prabhupada, and every 5 minutes, well, not every 5 minutes, but because sometimes I'd be there for an hour or so, 2 hours. So every time he'd stop and look at me, and he said, if you have any free time, just pick up your beads and chant Hare, and he picked up his beads and said, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Then he'd go and talk to me again. And one time I was getting a little bit distracted, and I thought, because I thought I was a yogi, so I thought I'd meditate on Prabhupada's effulgence. So I started to do that, and Prabhupada stopped me, and he said, our process is bhakti, it's not mystic yoga. So then I realized that Prabhupada was quite aware of things, and it was the last time I tried to meditate on anyone's effulgence.
Maharaj, as you are taking care of sannyas ministry, so what are the criterias to decide that who is a sannyasi and who should be a sannyasi?
Well, that ministry has developed over decades now. So our basic idea is that we needed a process by which we could simultaneously evaluate the qualifications of the sannyasi and simultaneously educate them. So that was part of it. And of course, in our society, unfortunately, we have to deal with problems sometimes. So gradually as the ministry developed, then we also got responsibility to handle the different cases or the problems that arose amongst the sannyasis. But to become a sannyasi, presently we have what's known as the standing committee, which is the most senior members on our committee. They're all Prabhupada's disciples, and they have the final decisions. But then we have the the team for assessment of sannyas candidates, which we meet every week, and we assimilate the knowledge we get from other committees to make a decision about the status of a sannyas candidate. Those other committees are the TSCS, which is a mission committee, which assigns action learning projects, which right now we're dealing with assigning them small groups, and then presently we're working with temple presidents and regional secretaries to establish services or ministries for the candidates also, or the people who in the small groups, to engage them in service or ministry according to their inspiration, their capacity, their experience, their abilities, etc., etc. And also, we have every year we wind up with around 30 sannyas candidates, and they're divided into applicants, accepted applicants, potential candidates, and then if they are seen as qualified, then we recommend them to the standing committee, which recommends them to the GBC, which means that they would become eligible to take sannyas. And then we have another committee called the Mission Committee, where they're assigned missions around the world to go on for usually 2 weeks at a time, sometimes 2 times a year, 2 weeks at a time. And then they go, according to the Mission Committee, they have devotees all around the world working on that particular committee. And they also are assigned to travel with a senior member of the society, usually a sannyasi, for a couple of weeks a year for training and to become assessed. Then we have a sannyas college where they, for 2 weeks every year, where senior devotees teach them different aspects of Krishna consciousness and sannyas life, and also we give instructions on the actual learning project, etc. Then we have a secretarial conference. We have around 7 or 8 secretaries to deal with these things. And then we have a finance committee, and we have that's a coordination committee that coordinates all these different committees together.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. We're always adding new things to it, by the way, because it's more and more complicated as time. Complicated in the sense that it becomes, because we're trying to become more and more conscious of actually what we're doing, and doing it in a systematic way. Like recently, we added the idea of establishing for communication, a mutually agreed upon vocabulary that we use throughout the committees. So the qualities of the sannyasi that we're looking for, so that all the different committees are evaluating the sannyasis, candidates, they can actually use the same criteria, the same language also. So that's why we have that's one of the jobs of the committee that deals inter-committee work, to establish a uniform methodology of assessing the candidates based upon the same qualifications or similar according to what the particular committee deals with, and the same language to deal with it.
And what basic qualities we look for as a sannyasi?
Well, the simplest is, as Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, abhayam sattvasam sudhir jnana yoga vyavyastiti. Fearlessness, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, and purity. Those are the main ones.
Yeah.
So those can be expanded, but those are manifestations. Like, for instance, abhayam is a manifestation of eternity. Unless one realizes that one is eternal, not this body, then it's impossible to be fearless. And jnana yoga vyastiti means that the qualities of knowledge have been explained in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, where Krishna begins with amaditvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, shanti, arjavam, charyapasanam, socham, stiryam, atma vinigraha. And it goes on, indriyarteshu, vairagyam, anahankara evacha, janma mriti jara vyadi, dukkha dosha nudarshanam, asakta anabhishvanga, putra dara grihadishu, nitya cha pradishtatvam, ishtanishta papadishu, ayichainana yogena, bhaktiava vicharini, vivikta desha sevatvam, aratir janma samsidi, adhyatma gana nityatvam, tattva ganartha darshanam, eta gyaniti proktam, agana yat atonyataha. So amongst those qualities, for instance, we have asakti abhishvanga, putra daragrihadishu, a detachment for wife, children, home, and the rest. So the sannyasi should know how to preach to the householders what's essential. For instance, what's essential for a householder is that he should sit down morning and evening with his wife and children, chant Hare Krishna together, hear Srimad Bhagavatam together, or Bhagavad-gita, worship the deities, and offer their food to the deities. So that's essential preaching for the householders, by the sannyasi to the householders. Everything else is, there may be other things to talk about, but those are the most essential thing that Krishna mentions is the process of gaining transcendental knowledge. And the last one is abhayam Abhyam Yoga Samsiddhi Samshuddhir, purity. So the purity corresponds to bliss, and Jnana Yoga's Vyavastiti corresponds to knowledge. So the sannyasi is supposed to be on the platform of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Nishtha, at least. Otherwise, Prabhupada writes, for instance, in that purport, if one accepts sannyas, but he's not really very conversant in transcendental knowledge, then at least then he should cultivate it. So that's three qualities that are essential. The other quality, which usually is challenging, is that our society has become a little bit more, we could say, spontaneous, in the sense that everyone thinks that they're an authority within society, or many devotees think they're independent authorities, because that's our problem in the material world to begin with. And therefore, although sometimes it seems to some devotees to be bureaucratic, what we're doing, but actually part of it is just, not purposely, but the following authority and direction and filling out the forms and et cetera, we find that is important. Because generally speaking, even the GBC in our society is not, among some devotees, not accepted as a very important authority. They don't really have any direct contact generally with the GBC. And therefore, when they come to the sannyas ministry, they start the process, they find out that we actually act to a certain extent as an authority. And it takes a little getting used to. That they have an authority that actually is going to work as an authority and train them, direct them, and they're going to be judged partly whether they're actually going to timely and properly fulfill the requirements that we give them. And the requirements aren't so difficult, but it requires some interest. Sometimes for instance, when we used to have what was called the devotees would come and they applied to become a sannyasi, and they were put on a list according to their age. And then they found themselves that we didn't move them up or down or left them where they were without some qualifications. There was some assessment which developed over the course of time. And we found that by the assessment process, that many devotees who weren't that serious, that they get off the list. And therefore we went from, when I came as a sannyas minister, actually it was Jayadvaita Maharaj who first formed the idea of a sannyas committee, and he became more or less in charge of it, and then he asked, 1988, and then he asked me to assist him the next year, and so I became his assistant, and eventually I became the sannyas minister, and created a committee of senior devotees. And then we developed it in the course of from then until now. So originally, when I became a member of the committee, Prabhupada had initiated around 100 sannyasis, of which when I came there was maybe 20 left, maybe less than that. So, and then we developed it. So we had, when I came, besides Prabhupada left in 77, so it's 88, they had maybe 60 more, 20, we have 40 more sannyasis. And so eventually the total number of sannyasis that left was around 100. And right now we have around 120. So since I've been the sannyas minister, we added on around doubled it, we could say, since then. And only a few of them have left. So we could say our average of keeping the sannyasis without having major difficulties, because some of them have some difficulties, but without serious difficulties, since those who have gone through the process, there's much fewer have left since then. The real problem, though, is sannyas is not a problem. The real problem is guruship in our society.
Yeah.
Because sannyasi, when I became a sannyasi, I had nothing. I had no money, I had nothing. The only money I ever got was by book distribution.
Yeah.
People didn't generally give me anything. I was working with the BBT, and even I was a national regional secretary for a number of countries in South America. But they didn't give me anything. They had nothing.
Yeah.
We had to give them money. And so I go to America and I distribute books to the airport to whatever money I had. Matter of fact, when I tried to open a bank account the first time, they refused to allow me to have a savings account because I was 30 years old or something. They said you have no history of financial dealings with the bank, so they wouldn't let me open a bank account, even a savings account. So I had to gradually work that up, getting a Macy's card and buying a sweater or something, and establishing some credit before I could actually open a bank account. So, but then when you become a guru, and then you get so many followers, so much financial assistance, etc., which for a sannyasi is not necessarily so good, especially if you get a number of female disciples who are all anxious to render service, and you get so much, and there's not much oversight, etc., etc. So most of the problems with the sannyasis have been, not only sannyasis have had problems as gurus, but also householders. I'm also the chairman of the Guru Services Committee, so I have two things to look after.
Yeah. Maharaj, as we see, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas in a very young age. And at the time of Srila Prabhupada also, the sannyasis are very young. But nowadays we see a sannyasis almost around 50 plus. So do you think that it's impacting our preaching also?
Well, first of all, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas when he was young, but he's eternal. So he has a lot of history. Every day of Brahma, he takes sannyas. So he's quite used to it. He's quite experienced, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Besides being God, he's not attracted to anything material.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, as far as, when Prabhupada came, I joined the movement when I was 19 years old. And the most senior person in our society was probably 30 years old, Kirtananda. They were considered quite old people at that time.
Yeah.
So probably that's all he could make was, he had no one else to give sannyas to. They were all 25, whatever it was. The Mac Kirtananda was 30 years old probably when he took sannyas at 31. He was considered quite old, ancient. Now as time developed, and so many sannyasis had left the ashram, then we had to become more serious. So therefore, the minimum age is 40, the GBC passed, was 40 years old, to be, unless there's an exception which had to be voted in at this time by a 3/4 majority of the GBC. So it became serious. They didn't want such a rate of fall downs from the sannyasis.
Yeah.
And it's assumed that when 40 years old, 50 years old, you'd probably be, or 60, you'd probably be not so much interested in household life. But as I said, when you mix it up with guruship and you get unlimited wealth and unlimited followers, and sometimes there's some difficulty. And also because our guruship within ISKCON has created some kind of, sometimes the culture is such, although the disciples should accept the guru as good as God, but there was this idea cultivated that my guru is something special, and therefore we get, if we have 90 gurus now, we have 90 different groups of devotees, sometimes thinking that their guru is something special. So it doesn't always work out so well in terms of, because then the guru may start thinking he's something special too. Or even if he doesn't, he has to deal with so many devotees who are in that mood, and maybe create some disturbance. And also, they tend to isolate. Sometimes, if you get a large number of disciples, sometimes you get isolated by all the favorable service they're rendering. You don't have time to go to class. You don't have time to go to the program. You're too busy taking care of all the problems of your disciples.
Yeah.
But personally, we in our group service committee, we're making a recommendation that, according to Prabhupada's instructions, he established in his last will that the managerial structure should continue as it is without any change, and that the GBC should be the ultimate authority, besides safeguarding the properties, making provisions for that. He didn't establish any guru, either shiksha or diksha, as being part of the management.
Yeah.
Therefore, the guru should leave the management up to those who are appointed to do the management, and they should be exemplary sadhakas and preachers.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be marriage counselors, financial advisors,
Yes.
health coaches.
Yeah.
They should stick to what their service is. Their role should be that, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And also, we shouldn't try to imitate Srila Prabhupada,
Yeah.
because Prabhupada was an acharya, and Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction that a self-realized person, a Mahabhagava, is one who's realized that there's no difference between Krishna and his name. He's realized that his spiritual identity, what it is, and his whole business, 24 hours a day, every thought, every deed, every word is simply to spread Krishna consciousness. So such a person should be accepted as a Mahabhagava, and everything one has should be offered to him.
Yeah.
Especially the brahmacharis, they should collect, and everything should be offered to such a Mahabhagava.
Yeah.
But if one is not a Mahabhagava, but he imitates Mahabhagava in that way, then he's sure to become degraded.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have to establish if we want to become successful, we have to follow what Prabhupada wanted. So we have to work towards that culture.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll continue to split apart like the Gaudiya Math, and the GBC will become less and less effective. But that's not what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted the GBC to establish the purpose of our society, the mission of our society, and the vision of our society, to be the leaders of the society according to Prabhupada's instructions and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission.
Yeah.
But if you have parallel lines of authority where the money's going here and the money's going there, Lakshmi's going in all different directions, and that the loyalty of the disciple is thinking that is my guru is going to save me, and everyone else is more or less furniture in the temple, secondary, then it's a misconception, because actually it's obtaining the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading Krishna consciousness that will save us.
Yes.
As Prabhupada wrote to me in 1969, I asked him a question about because every time I was the treasurer, so we were selling the blue Bhagavad-gitas at that time, the original Bhagavad-gita we had. And every time we got money, we sold them, then I'd send Prabhupada the money for the Bhagavad-gitas. We didn't keep anything for the temple. So one letter I wrote to Prabhupada, I'd asked him how Bhava turns into prema. Because the only other book that we had besides the Srimad Bhagavatam that Prabhupada had given us was a book called the Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu by Ban Maharaj, with the translation and commentaries by Jiva Goswami. So my temple president told me I shouldn't read that book. because I guess Prabhupada told him we should generally read that book. It was too advanced for us. But he had it in the temple. We had in the temple at that time, we had 2 rooms and a little bit of space besides that. So I was living in one room with a devotee named Kanapriya. So at night when everyone was asleep, I'd get up and read the book because my temple president told me I shouldn't read it. I thought it must be quite interesting. So I got up and read it, and I got up to the part where Bhava turns into Bhava and Prema, but I didn't understand it. So I wrote to Srila Prabhupada asking him, can you give me an explanation how Bhava turns into Prema? So Prabhupada wrote me back a letter, and first part of the letter, he said we should distribute this Bhagavad-gita in Buffalo. And then in the second paragraph, he said that in San Francisco, we just had a Rath Yatra, and 10,000 boys and girls were chanting and dancing in full spiritual ecstasy. That the boys and girls in your country are generally good souls. That's why they've taken birth in such a nice country. He said, I heard in New York in just 2 weeks, they've distributed 3,000 back to Godheads. And then in Buffalo, you're also distributing back to Godheads very nicely. So please continue in this way, and your success in life is assured. As Krishna sees you're working seriously to help bring Krishna's other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then he'll bestow all his blessings upon you. That Krishna is never ungrateful for efforts to serve him, rest assured. And then on the other side of the page, he said, regarding your question, how Bhava turns into Prema, there's no need to trouble yourself over such advanced topics of the present time. But shortly my book, Nectar of Devotion, will come out, and you can read about it then. As far as the $50 you said you enclosed, but I don't find any money enclosed in the letter. I think someone probably stole it. We didn't know you weren't supposed to send cash in a letter. So that's our mission. Prabhupada didn't assign, for instance, Prabhupada in 1977, November 2nd, conversation with 2 politicians in India who came to visit Prabhupada. They came into Prabhupada's room and asked if they could speak to Prabhupada personally without anyone else there. And there was Bhakti Shri Maharaj and someone else there as his caretakers. And they said, they objected, but Prabhupada said, no, you can leave and I'll talk to them personally. So when the caretakers came back, they asked Prabhupada, what did they ask? And Prabhupada said, they asked me, who will be the next leader in ISKCON? And Prabhupada said that actually to them, I'm not choosing anyone as the next leader. He said, all my disciples will be the next leader. Yeah. As much as they follow, they become the next leader. He told them, you can also become the next leader if you follow. Yeah. So this idea that Prabhupada chose 11 zonas, whatever they came up with, Prabhupada chose that everyone is the next leader, as much as they follow. Even Prabhupada himself wasn't a big leader in the Gaudiya Math, but because he became a perfect devotee, therefore he became the next leader.
Yeah. Maharaj, how Sannyas ministry decide that who could be the diksha guru?
The Sannyas ministry doesn't decide that.
Sorry.
The Guru Services Committee.
Yeah. That diksha...
who becomes a diksha guru?
Yeah.
We have some complicated process.
Oh.
But the Guru Services Committee doesn't really deal with that. We're not really connected with that.
Oh, okay.
We're connected with, generally mostly what we've been dealing with is all the problems that arise from from whoever they choose to become a diksha guru. There's a 10-man committee that meets locally, and they make a recommendation who's going to become a diksha guru. And then the name is sent to the GBC for no objection. And no one objects, then they become a diksha guru. It's much easier to become a diksha guru than becoming a GBC or a sannyasi. Much easier. Oh. We deal with, like, for instance, we've added some educational requirements. Okay. They have to study certain books and pass certain tests, but we don't really make the recommendation who's going to become, we don't select anyone or even recommend to the GBC who's going to become a diksha guru, our committee.
Okay.
Although the education requirements were increasing. For instance, we just had an initiative from the Guru Service Committee and the Sannyas Ministry that all the candidates, either Diksha Guru candidates or the Sannyas candidates, they'll take seminars from our ministries who are willing to give seminars to them, and committees and offices in this country, which is around 15 or something like that. So if they give a seminar once a year, so that will be added on to our Sannyas College. In any case, we're making recommendations because we understand it's the most difficult service being a Diksha Guru in ISKCON. Even you want to do the right thing, but our culture is such that it's very difficult to do the right thing sometimes as a Diksha Guru. There's so much pressure from the expectations from the disciples.
Yeah.
So much, if you have the wrong idea about, if the culture is such that they think they're supposed to become a marriage counselor or a financial advisor,
Yeah.
or a land, dealer or whatever else, health coach or psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever. Then it's a very difficult service if you have that expectation. And generally speaking, sometimes they get some support and sometimes they don't get such support. And therefore, we're aware of some problems because we have the same problems. So we're trying to do whatever we can to help.
Yeah. How you see the next 10 years of ISKCON?
Well, the way I see it is that we have to correct course, change the culture. It's not by GBC resolutions we can change the culture, although the GBC could help by authorizing our education in trying to change the culture. But it has to be a change of culture of education. Unless the gurus, unless the GBC, like I was on different committees where we could say, establish a proper financial management of the guru's dakshin, etc. But the GBC never agreed on it, exactly. So we never really got very far. Even we had some parallel lines of authority, committee, pastor, but it hasn't really got very far. So that we have to work on till it actually becomes established that the guru has a manageable service role in the society, diksha, shiksha guru, and that they're not burdened, that at the same time their finances are taken care of, whatever their actual needs are. And everyone in the society who's dedicated to society, their financial needs are taken care of.
Yeah.
That the shiksha or diksha guru is not a different position than everyone else's service. It's a service position. It's a very responsible position, but it's not the only position. It's not the only service in the society. According to what their needs are for maintaining themselves and for their service, they should be provided. But everyone should be provided also, according to their needs and service. And we shouldn't give people services and positions unless we can provide for them. Not that you become a diksha guru and now you have to collect disciples in order to fulfill and create your own projects, etc. No, there should be, the GBC should oversee the worldwide mission, the worldwide purpose of ISKCON and mission and vision for the society. And then the individual temples should also assist in that and also establish their own purposes and vision, mission and vision for their temples. Should be organized according to Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada and our Acharya's desire to fulfill the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That we should be fixed on that. and not divert ourselves by a million other objectives.
Yeah. Yeah. In our society, we see generally devotees give more importance to the diksha guru, not the shiksha guru. So how to understand?
Well, acharyamam vijanayam navamartita karichit na martya buddha suyeta sarvadeva maya guru. Lord Krishna talks to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is repeated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the first chapter called the Spiritual Masters, verse number 46. He says that acharyamam vijanayam navamati hikariche, that one should never disrespect the guru, specifically the initiating guru. And there are two types of initiating gurus that Prabhupada mentions in the purport. One is the Gurukul teacher who educates the Gurukul students to the level of understanding the Vedic knowledge, or maybe even Krishna consciousness. So that guru is qualified because he's just like a father educating his son. He has no particular selfish interest or agenda. That's his service, just educate the students. So the second level of guruship, Prabhupada mentions, is what Narottam Das Thakur and others like Bhaktivedanta Thakur write in their songs, that the guru is either a direct manifestation of Lord Nityananda or a personal associate of Srimati Radharani. So that's the Mahabhagavat guru. So there's two types of gurus. Prabhupada mentions that a letter to Janardhan in 1968, who was in Montreal at that time, concerning, some controversy he had with one of his god brothers, and then Prabhupada says that, who was visiting the different temples at that time. But he said that actually, he said, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his words are as good as scriptures, because he's a Mahabhagavat. Just like Srimati Radharani, she's a Mahabhagavat, because she sees even her assistants as being greater than her sometimes. He said that such a person is actually qualified to become a diksha guru. He said others who are not on that level, they can also become diksha gurus if they strictly follow those who are on that platform. So those two types of gurus are there, initiating gurus. Those who try to educate, they may not be self-realized, but they're educating the disciple according to their level of understanding.
Yeah.
And then there's others who are the Mahabhagavats. And then the next verse, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami cites Shiksha Guru Ke. So Shiksha Guru Ke. Oh, that's right. Shiksha Guru Ke Ta Krishnara Sarup Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha Edurup. That one should know the Shiksha Guru as a representative of Krishna. The Super Soul and the Mahabhagavat, the best of the devotees, they're both representatives of Krishna. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport, there are two types of Shiksha Gurus. One who's situated in transcendence, the Mahabhagavat, and he sees everything objectively, which means he sees everything exactly what it says in the Bhagavad-gita. That's how he sees things. And there are others who are not at that level, but because they follow the Mahabhagavat, although they see things subjectively, according to their level of realization, but they're giving the same knowledge, but it may not be with the same realization or experience.
Yeah.
And then Prabhupada writes that the Acharya, in the true sense of the term, was authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches a disciple with full spiritual knowledge, and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. So we can bring people up according to our level of understanding of Krishna consciousness. Because the path goes, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Machita machkata prana bodhiyantash parashparam gatayantasramam nityam tu shanti charamanti cha. That the thoughts of my pure devotees, they dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss by lightening one another and conversing about me. So we're instructing, whether we're a Mahabhagavat or, trying to act as a Madhyama Adhikari, whatever we are, we're instructed in the same thing. Namely, how to utilize our chitta, our consciousness, put it on Krishna, and our prana, our energies, and engage them in Krishna's service. So according to our level of utilizing our chitta and our prana in Krishna's service, our experience is either that of Tushanti, making progress in devotional service, or Ramanti, being ecstatic, deriving pleasure, transcendental pleasure from our service. So then Krishna says in the next verse, Tesham sadatam yuktanam bhajantam pritipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mamupyantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, then I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So according to our level, how much we're constantly engaged, consistently engaged, how much we're approaching the stage of nishta, fixity, with enthusiasm, to that extent Krishna gives us intelligence how to make further progress in devotional service.
Yeah.
And if we're sincere and we pass the test, because Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad-gita 434, he said one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life.
Yeah.
One has to pass the test of the spiritual master. When the spiritual master sees a genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses him with genuine spiritual understanding.
Yeah.
So, our Mahabhagavad in our society is Prabhupada. I mean, we may have other Mahabhagavats, no one is disqualified from becoming a Mahabhagavat,
Yeah.
but our recognized Mahabhagavat is Prabhupada because within his books and the institution that he created,
Yeah.
and the disciples the followers that he has, they're all followers because they're following Prabhupada, his instructions. So if we serve them, then Krishna and Prabhupada within our heart, they'll appreciate that, and then they give us genuine spiritual understanding. And then we make advancement, and if we pass the test of the spiritual master, or pass Krishna's test, Queen Kunti had a lot more. She says, Vishan Mahagne Purushara Darshana. I mean, Bhima was fed poison. They were put in a house of lack. I mean, luckily, most of us don't have to go through that right now. But she prays, Vipadak Shantu Takshasrat Tatra Tatra Gajak Girl, Bhavato Darshanam Nyasyat Apuna Bhavadarshana. She was praying that we could see these calamities again and again, so we could see Krishna again and again.
Yeah.
Because by seeing him, we'll no longer see repeated birth and death.
Yeah.
So when we apply the knowledge and with conviction, and in spite of whatever obstacles we go on sincerely, then Krishna becomes pleased and he reveals himself within our heart. And that intelligence he gave us originally becomes experienced intelligence, Vigyan. And that's called Krishna consciousness. We feel ecstasy and we feel Krishna's presence, and growing love and ecstasy in relation with Krishna is there, and the detachment from the things that draw our minds away from Krishna.
Yeah.
So that's more or less I think I answered your question, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of, the shiksha, the guru, the disciple thinking my guru is self-realized, whatever, and he's the only guru in the society who's self-realized, or he's the best of. No, there's the same super souls in everyone's heart. There's the same message that we're all repeating.
Yeah.
The potency of that message will be according to our realization. But if we're actually realized and our disciples become realized, then they'll realize that actually we're in Gopi Bharata Pada Kamalayor, Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I'm just the insignificant servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And as I'm an instrument for Krishna, or trying to become, so everyone else is also trying to become an instrument for Krishna.
Yeah.
And therefore, the business of the guru is to instruct his disciples in ascertaining how to exchange the loving exchanges, the 6 loving exchanges with different devotees according to their level of accomplishment, level of development in devotional service. So for those who are lower than us, we're supposed to inspire them to become higher. Those who are on the same level, or instruct them how to make progress in devotional service. Those who are on the same level, we're supposed to cooperate with them, make friends with them, so we can reveal our minds in confidence to them. They can reveal their minds in confidence to us, and we can take shelter of Prabhupada mutually together, walk on the same path together, under the directions of the superior devotees who are working under Prabhupada's directions. So for the superior devotees, we should see them as either our diksha guru or our shiksha gurus. That because they're following Prabhupada and they're his representatives and they realize the results of Krishna consciousness by taking shelter of Prabhupada, they become our gurus. And because they become our gurus, it doesn't really matter if they're shiksha or diksha gurus. If they're a diksha guru, the diksha guru told us to take shelter of these different devotees, work under the directions of Prabhupada and those who are working under Prabhupada's directions, so we can cooperate, make friends with the devotees, and help the innocent. So when the diksha gurus see that, when the shiksha gurus see that the diksha gurus are giving those instructions, and therefore properly taking shelter of them and cooperating with those who are on the same level and helping the innocent, then they realize that the diksha guru is bona fide, giving the proper instructions. And they encourage their shiksha disciple those who are friends with them or the innocent people they develop faith in the diksha guru, encourage the disciple to take shelter of the diksha guru. And when the disciple takes shelter of the diksha guru realizes that, they're shiksha gurus and their friends and the innocent people are encouraging them to take shelter, and therefore he encourages them, his disciples, the diksha disciples, to take shelter of their shiksha gurus. And those encourages them to make friendship with the other devotees properly and help the innocent. And therefore, that way we have one happy family.
Yeah.
Who cooperate with each other.
Yeah. Yes.
Because there's only one guru. Ultimately, it's Krishna in the heart.
Yeah.
And Krishna and his representatives, the acharyas in our line, whether it be the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva, or the six Goswamis, or the acharyas coming down from the six Goswamis, then they're all perfect representatives of Krishna in the heart. There's no difference between them, whether they're our shiksha gurus or our diksha gurus. They'll be direct representatives of the super soul. Shiksha guru ke sa Krishna Swarup antaryami bhakti shrestha edi rup. One should know the shiksha guru as my representative, both the super soul and the best of the devotees. They're manifestations of Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this wonderful answer. Actually, we have got so much clarity on this. So, another question is,
Okay.
Maharaj, you can have water.
No, it's all right.
Which was the hardest year or duration of your service, if you want to share?
Well, it's Prabhupada gave me the name Prahaladananda. One was as cheerful as Prahlad Maharaj in all kinds of difficult tests, critical tests. He wrote.
Yeah.
That more or less defines my career into Krishna consciousness. But it's hard to say which test Krishna put me through, which was hard. But during the zonal acharya system, I was a temple president of Dallas. And that was quite a difficult time because there's so much confusion. And the only person I figured I could take shelter was with Prabhupada within my heart. So that was a good experience in that sense. A little painful because there's so much confusion, so much distress on the devotees,
Yep.
so much conflict.
Yeah.
But after that, I've experienced other years. Krishna doesn't let you rest until you become actually serious. His job is not to make our life pleasant, it's to make it Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
Like for 1 year recently, I was being accused of so many things and without any evidence. Anyhow, that was a little difficult. So then, and even my zone, even the leadership was wondering what's going on. My zone, why is all this, why is people who are not necessarily devotees, who are not necessarily very serious about Krishna consciousness, why is their voice heard amongst their voice, above their voice also? Anyhow, as a result of that, then I got inspired to help because to give the Sannyas ministry and the Guru Service Committee, we have powers for adjudication, and then we established, I established what's called the IDRD, ISKCON Dispute Resolution Department, which deals with, it's a collaboration of all the different ministries and offices and committees that deal with adjudication, law within society. So that includes the law department, Devaki Nandan, the legal department, Mother Champakalata, who's the Minister of Justice, Raja Bihari Prabhu, who's ISKCON Resolve, the ISKCON, I forget what they call it now. I always forget because they changed it. But it's something to deal with leadership misconduct office. I think they call it the ISKCON Leadership Conduct Office rather than misconduct. And then we have the Sannyas Ministry and the Guru Services Committee, and then we have an investigative committee. So with these different departments, and in Europe, we established a adjudication process for Europe, which under the Justice Ministry. So from something which was rather concerning, it's something more, we have the beginning of a justice system within ISKCON, which is a model for it, which will take some time to develop, but we can have more of a uniform justice within ISKCON. Otherwise, we have a kind of like a free-for-all. People don't know what evidence is. They don't know how to evaluate it. That anyone can make any complaint, and there's no real system of evaluating the complaints. And, things are decided, even now, according to the internet. You get enough people pressuring on the internet, or whatever means they have, then the leadership goes this way, the GPC, and then if other people pressure the other way, it goes the other way. So we go back and forth like a pendulum, according to who's pressuring who.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So we have to establish an actual system, which may take some time.
Yeah.
Because again, we have, first of all, it's not only a culture, but it's also we're conditioned souls. So everyone, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Sadvanurupa sarvasha shadabhavati bharata shadomaya yo purusho yo yastrata sevasaha. Under the influence of the three modes, everyone has evolved a certain type of faith. In other words, a certain type of consciousness. And according to that faith, then we act and we'll evolve another kind of consciousness, better or worse, whatever. So we're all conditioned by certain modes of material nature, and that's how we see things. And that's how we usually act according to how we see. So to get such persons together, such divergent viewpoints, takes some time. So the culture is developed because of that, as an adjustment to everyone's different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, everyone needs a leader. Because we're all working according to our past association, which means we've accepted certain people as leaders, not only in this lifetime, but since time immemorial.
Yeah.
And that's conditioned our consciousness, and we're attracted to certain leaders. We follow them, and therefore, naturally, we're always seeking a leader. And because we're conditioned souls, we like a leader who's going to satisfy our senses also.
Yeah.
In our movement, we like a leader also who give us some direction, hopefully, in Krishna consciousness. But when we create a system of initiation, which is too liberal, then we wind up getting literally thousands of people with many different viewpoints which have nothing to do with scripture or Prabhupada's instructions.
Yeah.
It creates a tremendous amount of pressure on the society to go this way or that way
Yeah.
in the name of protecting the society. But there's no necessarily a clear, it's not necessarily by great humility and direction from the scripture and praying to the super soul to give us guidance. We don't necessarily make decisions that with full clarity, they're irrefutably clear to us. Sometimes we make decisions because of the political pressure or the social pressure that's put on the leadership. And then people realize that if you put enough pressure on, you can change the decision. So then they change the decision by doing the opposite pressure on it.
Yeah.
We go back and forth. So that has to change, or else we can't really have a sane society, peaceful society.
So, Maharaj, it's our great privilege to have your association. So, do you have any message for the next generation and for the future leaders?
Read Prabhupada's books, hear from Prabhupada's disciples and followers, but try to see through the eyes of the scripture what Prabhupada's books, what they're saying. Don't think that any of us can be independent of Prabhupada and be effective. So we're only as effective as much as we've understood in following Prabhupada's directions and example. So try to become aware of that. And also even our books written by our Prabhupada's disciples, we should see them in relationship to Prabhupada's instructions in the Bhagavad-gita and his instructions. Because we're conditioned souls, we can only do the best we can. Unless we're fully enlightened, then we'll be on the level of Srila Prabhupada, but we can't take that for granted. It's not so easy to come to the level of Mahabhagavad. So we have something to add because of our experience. We can help those who have less experience come to at least our level of experience. But we should see everything through Prabhupada's vision, ultimately through Krishna's vision in the Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and become a little discriminating. Because we accept our leadership because they give us valuable information, they give us valuable experience through their instructions and engaging us in service, but that's all due to Prabhupada's instructions that they've gotten and his mercy that they've received. And we should understand that we should try to learn through this process of Krishna consciousness so that one day we can actually hear Srila Prabhupada. Because as far as I can understand at the present time, at least we know that Srila Prabhupada was chanting Hare Krishna like a child calling for his mother, with full love and affection and dependency. Yeah. So if we can hear Prabhupada chanting like that, then we can learn how to chant like that also. Then our lives will become successful.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for giving your precious time. Yeah. We are very fortunate to have that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to say something about Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and the devotees in this society. Because we're all very fortunate. It's not that in this society that something's missing because Prabhupada left some decades ago, whatever it is. But actually Prabhupada is still present in this society. He's present in the form of his books. He's present in the form of his activities that are written about in the books. He's present in the form of his deity in the temple. It's not different from Srila Prabhupada. He's present in the form of his devotees who are sincerely following his instructions. They're also manifestations of Prabhupada's mercy. So we should try to take advantage of this mercy that Prabhupada has given us in so many different ways. Yeah. Not take it for granted that this society is an ordinary society. As long as the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna, trying with some determination to follow Prabhupada's instructions, and deriving some happiness and satisfaction by doing so, enthusiasm, then we should know when we're in the right place. And we can reach perfection by just staying and sincerely trying to take advantage of what Prabhupada has given us.
Please bless us, Maharaj. We can follow your instruction. Yeah.
Well, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said actually The blessings are already there. We just have to pray to Prabhupada and Krishna and our serve Prabhupada's representatives as devotees, because we're all, to one degree or another, acting as his representatives. And then Krishna will give us all blessings. Prabhupada will give us all blessings.